Despite the pessimism of offensive realists that great powers can set limits to their competition, the historical record of US-Soviet cooperation during the Cold War suggests a more nuanced and complex picture. Even in this most intense of competitive arenas, where misplaced trust could, given the shadow of nuclear weapons, be measured in the destruction of the world, the superpowers established mechanisms of restraint, perhaps even tacit rules to regulate their competition. The paradox of the superpower relationship was that, in the phrase that Marshal Shulman made famous, the United States and the Soviet Union were adversary partners. The tragic element of this very unusual partnership was that the cooperative element became more prominent during times of crisis, when there were risks of escalation to war, including, of course, the possibility of nuclear weapons being used. These crises over Berlin in 1948 and later in 1961, after the Soviet Union erected the Berlin Wall and threatened to close the West's access routes to West Berlin, and most spectacularly in October 1962, when the world held its breath for 13 days, as the superpowers went eyeball to eyeball, in Dean Rusk's memorable phrase, over the Soviet Union's deployment of medium-range nuclear-armed ballistic missiles to Cuba. In the end, the Soviets blinked, in that they agreed to remove their nuclear weapons from Cuba. But the young US President John F. Kennedy showed great wisdom in making the public concession, as part of the de-escalation, not to invade Cuba, and secretly agreeing to remove aging US missiles from Turkey that were pointed at the Soviet Union. Crisis management, as it became known in the strategic studies literature, was a game of brinkmanship, akin to a game of chicken, played with nuclear weapons, but where the drivers of the cars drove towards one another with the brake pedal firmly pressed down.